Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everybody. So if I was going to greet you in my mother tongue, I would say Koraparane Leana, which is in Roviana, and I'm from the western part of the Solomon Islands. Just before we start, can you hold out your weaving, see if you've done any progress with it? Oh, yay, somebody's got his wrist already, yay, okay. So it's important, I just want to reflect with the previous sessions. There's a lot of the reflection on the word of reform coming in the processes. It's also very important that we don't forget the past as we move into the present. So as we weave the reforms processes and ideologies into the new one, let's not forget, because usually when you weave, it's the older strands that hold on to the younger ones. Is that right, Mama? Yes, all right. So keep weaving this as we go into our other sessions, because we are going to bring them back on Thursday. Before we go on any further, my name is Clarinda Molyahana, and like I said, I'm from the Solomon Islands. I am here, I'm a student at CAP, the College of Asia Pacific, and I'm doing my Master's in Peace and Conflict Studies. So I have worked in the field as a restorative justice officer for the Ministry of Territorial Governance, Peace and Ecclesial Affairs, one of the very few women in the field. And I'm very blessed to be here this year. It's only for 1 year, but I'm enjoying Canberra, and also having been part of the ANU Pacifica students here for the next 3 days. I've been blessed learning from you as we also share the processes, and we can also take them home as well as lessons learned. Before I go any further, please, could we just give a hand to our panelists up here? Thank you very much. And on that note, I want to welcome the distinguished guests who are with us, the scholars, ladies and gentlemen. I'll give the floor to them. Thank you very much. So to the panelists, I'm just going to have this flag up here. If you're going over 20 minutes, I'll just wave it at you, if that's okay. Thank you. All right, Lena.
You might want your phone, Clarinda. Thank you very much indeed for that, Clarinda, and welcome everyone. Numbers are obviously thinning a little bit as we reach the end of the first day, but hopefully this panel will not disappoint. This is a panel which we have tentatively called Connecting Peacebuilding Initiatives Across Papua New Guinea. And it's a panel that really comes out of work that a number of us have been involved in over quite a long period of time. And as many of you will know, there's a lot of kind of fairly low-level conflicts that have been going on in Papua New Guinea for quite some time, particularly in the highlands. A lot of the external sort of understanding of conflict in Papua New Guinea is very much focused on Bougainville. Whereas these conflicts that have been going on in the highlands region, particularly in the upper highlands, over many, many years, have gone largely unnoticed and unremarked. So it's an area that requires significant sort of research. And part of the sort of framing of those sort of conflicts is very much focused on the sort of calamitous consequences of those kinds of conflict on communities, on individuals, on particular groups. But we wanted to sort of shift the focus in this panel to looking at the amazing sort of mix of peace building that has been going on simultaneous to the sort of conflicts. And these are sort of stories that, again, very rarely come out and get disseminated really beyond the sort of local areas. And so one of the challenges as we see it is how do we sort of gather together the sort of learning that has come out of these experiences, which are continuing as we speak today, and how do we sort of put them to use in terms of providing practical lessons that can be sort of utilized. So we've called it Connecting Peacebuilding initiatives across Papua New Guinea. We've got a really fabulous panel. We've got a slightly rejigged panel to what we had originally put together, in that one of our panel members, Dennis Kuai from Bougainville, who's a senior sort of law and justice figure on Bougainville, but also has an amazing background, both as a participant in the sort of Bougainville conflict and then as a peace builder. He unfortunately has been unable to join us, and we are very fortunate to have been able to secure the presence of our colleague Michael Main to speak. But let me talk about the other two panel members very quickly. We have Lily Basur, who's from the Foundation for Voice for Change, a very well-known sort of NGO that has been doing amazing work, and Lily is going to be talking about that. This is primarily in the Highlands and in Jawaka province in particular. And she will be followed by William Kapongi, who is from the National Research Institute. Amongst his many other attributes, he too, like Lily, is a very accomplished peace builder who's been very actively involved in Enga province in particular. And then William will be followed by Michael Main. Michael Main did his PhD here at the ANU. He's an anthropologist, and the focus of his work has been on conflict in Hela province, where he is a regular sort of visitor. So a really exciting panel. And to set up a bit of a framing to help us sort of navigate our way through this afternoon's discussion, I will call on my colleague Miranda to say a few words before we turn over to the panel.
Okay, thank you everyone for attending. So yeah, we're picking up on that theme of weaving and weaving peace in Papua New Guinea. And we've used this image, so it's not a weaving that people are doing, it's an organic kind of a weaving actually that happens beneath the surface. The mycelium networks are the fungal networks that really exist everywhere. You pick up a clod of earth and you see underneath it these mycelium networks at work. And they are unseen, and yet the work they do is so important. They nurture plants, they bring nutrients, they bring information to plants. And so we think that that is a really helpful metaphor when we're thinking about the kinds of local peace-building initiatives that are occurring really all over Papua New Guinea. And so one of the things that we've been seeking to do really in a series of panels that we've been holding at these different conferences is to bring together examples of innovative peace-building practices with the idea that often they can be strengthened through collaboration. The more that are working on a particular topic, the more effective they are. And I've certainly seen that in the work that I've been doing in relation to sorcery accusation-related violence, for example. We also think that this can unsettle a little bit the dominance of approaches to conflict that are based on violence, on using more violence to end violence. There is a sort of an idea that, the strong arm of the law is required, and in some respects, yes, but it also needs to be complemented with results that are based on deliberation, on discourse, on bringing in Indigenous and local peace-building practices. We were trying to create forums to share these local experiences and knowledge across Papua New Guinea, but also other parts of the region as well. And we're hoping that this might foreshadow the development of a PNG Peace Institute. So Divine Word University has got the opportunity to think about a new component of it. There have been discussions that maybe a Peace Institute would be something that could be positioned maybe up in the Highlands, that could be a space where on a regular basis people could come together to share these kinds of knowledge, to have training, and also for a lot of the research that has been done in this space to be brought together all in one place. So that's an exciting initiative that we're hoping will develop over the course of this year. So, but you're not here to listen to me, you're here to listen to our panel members, and I'd love to welcome Lily to give the first presentation.
Thank you, Miranda. Thank you, everyone, and good afternoon. Thank you to the Department of Pacific Affairs to bring me here to be able to share. I will be sharing with you all about the implementation of the Women, Peace and Security Initiative agenda at the grassroots level. Okay. In September 2023, we were approached by the Global Network for Women Peace Builders in New York. They were looking at implementing the localization of the UN Security Council Resolution 1325, and they have approached us, and we took that approach forward in September. We sent invitation, we identified about 18 communities that they wanted to trial out this, so we brought them in, and we had 2 weeks of training on what is really women, peace, and security, what is the meaning of peace, and what are the benefits of peace. What can it come out of peace in home? What can the peace come out of a community? So we were trying to look at what can peace, and they found out that a home with peace, children can prosper. They will have good home. And all these things. So we were taking them that the important part of that was the capacity building of training all these people. And then they went home to do the community mapping. Out of them, four pulled out. 14 of them we managed to. One of the things that they did was when they went home, we have been working closely with them. Within the 13 months, we had 2,166 consultation meetings. You can just imagine, these meetings were with the 14 communities. The same thing they were talking over and over again, so we have to bring tea, coffee, we have to go to the community. The community will come together with banana, firewood, and then we have to sit down and we have to talk. One of the opportunities that we did was they did a community mapping. They tried to see who made up the community. So each of these 14 communities, they went through a process of mapping. They found out that there were drug addicts there were marijuana growers, there were marijuana sailors, there were marijuana consumers there. They found out that there were first wife, second wife, third wife. They found out there were landless people there, there were migrants there. There were women who brought their country in, they got married and they were not taken care of, so they brought the children into the community. They found out the disabled people. They found out that there were people who were accused of sorcery. So they have mapped out, I think in each of the community, they map up about 24 to 20 different people that they make up the community. So we went through the process that they have to see that these people, we have to find out what problems or issues they are faced with in the community. So everybody were given the space to talk, discuss. Through these 2,166 consultations, each were giving out the issues that were facing them. The widows in the Highlands context, if a widow does not have a son, and if a husband dies, then the land is taken over by the relatives or she's kicked out. So they didn't want that to happen. They were afraid, they didn't want. The people who are accused of sorcery, they are living in fear when somebody dead, somebody died in the next. So all these issues they were bringing them, the elderly people. In our Melanesian society of caring for the elderly is deteriorating. There's nobody caring for them now. So all these issues there. They were polygamists there in the community. They were focusing on the latest wife. They were not taking care. They were deciding the first and the second wives. They were landless people. There were women that were married outside, but they bring the children into the community. And in the Highlands context, you have to give the land to the son. So what will they do with these young men who are there? So all this, they were identifying them, and then all of them were grouped there, and then they came up with whatever issues they want. And then we were asking them, what do you want the community to do? They want the community to protect them. So that's how the community came up with a community bylaws. 14 of them, but one of them we could not able to register They pull out because of a tribal conflict. So the 14 communities that they developed the bylaws, the first one, the law across all, we did it 5 communities in the north of Western Highlands, the Bay River, and then the 9 communities in the Jiwaka province. The first law they did was marijuana. So we have a big issue with our young people in the community. Before they were young men, they're growing freely, marijuana, they're growing freely, and they're trading them. So they were able to identify who's selling the marijuana, who's growing them, who's buying them. So they said, you must stop him marijuana. You not can grow him. And that was across the 14th province. So we are advocating to the government that you have an issue with young people taking the marijuana. And they're producing it freely, and they're consuming it. The second law that they took was the home brew. People, they make alcohol, and they consume freely in the community. And they came out with a law saying no to sorcery accusations related to what. They say no to wife beating. They say no to child protection is in the environmental is there. So all these issues are in that community bylaw. In the year 2025 also, we at the first National Women's Forum in Port Moresby, Women, Peace and Security in Port Moresby, and after 2 weeks we were given the notice that because we get the funding from USAID, Voice for Change is a non-governmental organization, we depend on the funding. And when the president got in, they cut the funding. So we couldn't really continue with that. And within this process of the 13 months of work that we do, 8 of the communities, they build themselves a community, or themselves, they build it. There were some good things coming up. So from this experiences, we see that community can be driven. Yeah, sorry, I was talking and I wasn't.
I'll just stand here, I'll move it
Yeah,
along.
thank you. Community can drive change if they are given and if they are empowered. You see, they made a community all there, but 8 of the community all they made. While I'm talking, they did a citizen arrest of about 37 people. But as we heard from the first panel, they mentioned that we still got a lot of problem to do with our state security. Some of the people that we have to arrest them and we have to prosecute them, this was done by the community. In Papua New Guinea, you try to go and you arrest or you apprehend the rapist. In the highlands, the men are protectors of the land and of the protectors of the people. They will not say he's there. No, they support each other and they let the criminal go. So the community approach was to try to get everybody on board and then try to help them to see their own issues that they have so that they can come up with a law. They said no to gun or small light weapons and small arms in the community. The law also contains the environmental, child protection, SARV, all these issues they are there. And there's another 3 communities, they made a law that is really challenging our norms. They like, the land is always passed down from the father to the son and down. But 3 of the communities, they made a law, they said that if there's no son and if they have a daughter, the community allowing them to give the land to the daughter. So we have to facilitate through the land mediation, the proper process to help the father to give the land to the daughter. So, some of the norms, they've been attending to it, like we've always been following all these norms. But when community get together, they can. And I thank the Australian government and the people of Australia for the taxpayers. They've given the money, and we've gone through the process. Yes, can we go to the next? I was talking next. The challenges, yeah. Okay, even with the community challenges they have, they felt that the law is in Port Moresby, our PNG constitution. That the law is with the police, the law is with the courthouse. But when they made this law, they said, oh, that's our own law. That's what they said, that's our own law. And if the community can do a citizen arrest of 37 people, now what we need is the police to step up. to step up to support them. We need the development partners to come in, work together with the government. Can we go to the last one, the one on the picture on the councillors? So you can see, go back. So each of the community, they put up a billboard. When you go to this community that has implemented the Women, Peace and Security, this is one of the community you can see. It's called the CONUM. It says peace and security of women and CONUM members, ending all forms of violence, encourage equal opportunity, socially, politically, and economically. So this is the community billboard they did, and they have put it out. One of the community billboard was pulled down to the ground twice. So now we have to do it, erect it again with the concrete. And then the other billboard is not put up yet, and the leader is taking that billboard and keeping in his house. So these are smaller challenges that we have to work with. Then we look at the other one, the councillors. So 2 weeks ago, we had these are all word councillors there. They're from the Mount Hagen, they're from Chiwaka. We are a non-governmental organization. We have to look at an exit strategy. So we have been working with the councillors. Some of these councillors, they've got a women, peace and security localization is happening in the community, but most of them, they don't have. So we brought them in. We brought lawyers, legal advisors from the National Department of Local Level Government. They came in and told them about their roles. What is the role of a ward councillor? What are the role of the LLG president? The local level government council managers all came in. Among them, one of the papa there, this is his 40th year of a ward councillor. And that was the very first training that he went to. So we have a lot of issues in the communities, and the councillors, they don't know their role. They are not empowered, they are not supported. The councillors, these are the community laws that the councillors they have to make them. But they were not aware of what powers they have. They were never inducted. They were not ever given the appropriate support. So one of the exit strategy of the organization was for changes we are looking at endorsing these laws. It has to be endorsed in the assembly. We were advised by the local level government lawyer that the laws have to be endorsed by at the assembly, and the councillors have to adopt this law, and then they have to implement it with their ward councillors. So the challenge remains is, how can you keep this fire burning? How can you nurture and keep this going so that they can continue to implement the law? Because in a society, we had incidents. Sometimes I feel like a policewoman. I drive the perpetrators to the police station. There was one young man. He was beating his aunt, and the communities, they came up and they tied his leg and hands, and they called me. So we drove him to the police station. Now his uncles are from that police station area, and I think the Highlands people here, you will know. The country and the uncles are very, very important. So when we brought this guy up to the police station, he called out and said, no, the people, they locked me up. And then you know what the uncle said? I'm still a married I'm still a thief. His uncle said that what, he stole your wife or he stole your pigs? And then you have to bring him, tie him up and put him in that. And they went and they got him out. So you can see the challenges. If the police were strong enough, they say that no, the community have a law. It has been brought in by the community themselves. They did a citizen arrest and he should face the full law. This didn't happen. But these are the challenges that we are going through. We need development partners. I'm advocating for the people working on child safety. You see that the community already got a child safety. The community is organized. You're working on climate change and mitigation strategies. You work through them with them because this community is organized now. And they feel proud of their law. They said, this is our law. And law me yet working. But to take it on board and go and make sure that the law really works to its full, is that it's still got a lot of challenges to go, but we need to work together with our government. So we still have a challenge that these councillors were not supported, so how will they implement this law once we sign at the assembly, at their assembly? So now we are working on to finalize the community laws, put them together so that the councillors can sign it and they can adopt the law. Okay, then they have to implement the law. So that's what we are doing now. But I as a local person, I feel a bit positive about this law, because this is where everybody comes in. They are all on board. They are trying to work. If somebody has a disagreement or falls off, then the community are all in take. But individually, that has been difficult. We have been working decade on ending violence against women. We don't, there's still more improvement needs to be done, but when we are working on this one, the community apprehended men who stood up to fight against his mom or his parents, and they were apprehended him. So there's some door opening up where community are making the change, but my challenge now is how do we keep this fire burning, And the community, two of the Women, Peace and Security are implementing community. Last time, this year, they nominated 2 women to go for the ward councillor. But they didn't win. So you can see, in our islands context, a community coming together and nominating a woman to contest for a ward councillor, I think in the area where I come from, this is the first time that they did that. So there's been some changes happening. But now we need, what I'm stressing again is that how can we help the community to be able to implement and make the dream become a reality? It needs the support of the development partners with our government and the community to work together to make this law work. And thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Lily. And so I know that everybody is going to have a lot of questions, but we'll leave the questions until the end. So now if I can invite William to come.
Thank you, Miranda. Thank you, Department of Pacific Affairs, for giving me this opportunity. And thank you, everyone, for making your time available for my presentation. My name is William Kipongi. I come from the highlands of Papua New Guinea, and shortly I will show you the exact province that I come from. My topic is, as you can see, a slow peace building in Papua New Guinea, moving at the speed of trust. I'm a bit challenged by the topic itself. So, as I speak, I am directly affected by tribal fight, and I'm one of those victims. I think my place was burned down. Miranda went to my village. My tribesmen are displaced. Family members are living elsewhere. And a lot of the properties and houses have been destroyed. Growing up in the village, it's really painful to see and experience such. But recalling back my memories, the tribal leaders were able to come to a resolution and make peace, and they can even able to talk. They used their own wisdom, the logics, the values, and they were able to bring the displaced back into their communities or in their original tribal land. Now, after the tribal fight, what we look forward to is to bring peace. So, as we can all focus here, this is where the tribal fight is. One tribe is on the other side, the other tribe is on the other side, and they fought. After the tribal fight, they come here for peace. One thing that surprised me from my own experience is peace building initiatives nowadays at this time became a tug of war between the government and the local people. Why I am saying this is because the tribal leaders were brought down to the city to sign ceasefire agreement between the warring factions. That lasted for 3 months, and still there was friction at home. The government went ahead and then brought them back to certain different place in a hotel and asked them to sign peace accord. And they did it. And after that peace accord, they still fought. There were still killings here and there, and then people were not yet settled. And people like myself is questioning who is doing the right thing to bring peace between the two tribes. So most of my presentation I'll be basing on the recent trouble fight in Wapenamanda in the Enga province. Just for your geographical background, this is where Papua New Guinea is, and below is my province. And the recent trouble fight that I am talking about is shown on the other side. And it affected more than almost 30 tribes. And when I talk about 30 tribes, it's about 50 to 60,000 people. The failure of past peace, that seems to be the focus of the government. They want peace immediately. And that's why they can take people out of their own land to sign peace agreement elsewhere, like maybe a mining company doing some certain agreements with landowners elsewhere. So as you can see, one photo, the leaders of two tribes standing with their peace accord, formally signed in one of the hotels in Port Moresby. And actually they come from the highlands. But on the other photo, you can see those people who actually fought in the trouble fights. Not these people who came and signed the agreement. That's why the initiative for peace building becomes a tug of war between the government and the local people. So that was one of the photos taken in one of the hotels in Port Moresby, where the provincial administrator was present to witness the signing of the peace accord. While that was happening, people in the village, they were also mobilizing and trying to talk with their own tribal enemies. So it seems like two things happening at the same time. Maybe later you might be able to come up with something that can bring the two together. Let's see. So why it fails? Lack of psychological preparedness. As I said earlier, there was sufficient time given to the people to really psychologically come up to a level where they are peace within themselves. And then sometimes inadequate compensation for land and lives lost. The winning tribe has to demand the losing tribe to pay compensation. When there is less given, there is still conflict. The nature of government-led mediation for peace seems to be a top-down model. The missing gaps in the healthy, productive garden concept is very important. I should have touched this a little bit earlier, because one of the blogs that was published by Miranda, Sinclair, and myself, the concept of peace was talked as a garden that can be nurtured, and a garden that can be regularly looked after so that it gives us the kind of produce that we want. For peace to prevail, they need to do all the necessary requirements for peace to flourish. When the process is rushed up, it collapsed. So what is slow peace building in today's context? You can see two set of photos there. One on the top, it's the cultural, people are doing at home, and one below is the government is taking on board. they're using police and defense force to force the leaders to come to certain locations, to sign agreements, and to shake hands and share drinks as a sign of peace. When that is happening in the cities and towns, people at home, they still continue to talk and talk and talk until they feel that they have to share drinks, or they have to talk face to face. So the healing factors of peace. And one of those very important factors, it seems, the time. The time factor has been very critically taken into consideration by our Melanesian friends. Because traditional Melanesian conflict resolution doesn't ever stopwatch, where everyone has to be rushed up to shine up an agreement, to ceasefire and to peace accord and then down the line. So time is required for anger to subside and to aunts and uncles to do the quiet diplomacy. Those who have intermarriages were usually the first ones to visit their tribal enemies. So that through those connections, people send words back and forth until they come to a state where everyone needs to come together and talk. And then comes compensation payments are initiated in the likes of pigs, money, and the winning tribes to cement the peace process. I hope I'm not confusing you when I'm talking about the two aspects at the same time. So what are the tools used for slow peace building? When I talk about the tools, you can see the first photo. There are people sitting there. These are from one tribe. They usually audio record their consents, and then there was a WhatsApp group created for them to communicate, send messages back and forth. So the good thing about that tool, that eliminates the middleman role. Usually there was a middleman that brings words back and forth. But because of that WhatsApp introduction, it eliminated the middleman, and the warring tribes, the enemy tribes, could listen everything that comes from the other tribe. And you can see on the other side, they're trying to surrender their guns as per the government request at the moment. So they surrendered their guns. So when they are armless, when they are not equipped with any arms like high-powered weapons that they are using, that's another tool, and that's a step ahead to peace. And also the church has been playing a very important role in this space, because when the peace talk was not yet initiated, under the identity of everyone being a Christian, they can all congregate in certain locations in a church. And through those church activities, it makes the enemy tribes talk. And they can express what they feel, what they think, and how they should come to build peace. So these are some platforms, digital space, and church initiatives creating that physical space for them to talk face to face, and then surrendering their guns so that peace can be accomplished. And those are the three tiers of strategy that has been noted in the peace building. Quick intervention. Even though that was not part of the Melanesian culture, it was very good, or it was very important, because tribal fights nowadays, it doesn't involve bows and arrows. It involves high-powered guns that destroyed a lot of properties, lives, even attracted a lot of tribes. And within a short period of time, we lost a lot of things. And that's why quick intervention is very good. And that's when the government came in. And people like myself, I was so happy, because we don't know how to solve it, because a lot of tribes involved. The little ways that we try to intervene could not try to contain that sort of violence. And then mending social fabric, social ties between the warring tribes. So we have that kind of relationships before the tribal fight. So we have intermarriages. We have allied, or we combined in certain other activities like bride price or funeral services, and so forth. So after the tribal fight, we need to bring up those good things that we did so that it has to be re-established. And then finally, these things can bring up to community wellness, building resilience, and resilience against future triggers. So to my summary and policy recommendations. Government must fund the process, not just the event, like what they did. They funded peace accord, ceasefire agreement, but what else they can fund? So it won't be really helpful if they can fund only that event and doesn't have a process that they can fund to sustain the peace process. And respect for indigenous timelines is a prerequisite for stability. So normally there's a certain number of months or years that has been planned ahead for peace to settle and bring the displaced families back to their communities. Develop approach to peace building initiatives that are culture sensitive. When the government is taking sort of like initiative, it also have to consult the cultural values that can sustain the peace between the two parties or two tribes. And that has to be a bottom-up approach. Let the community leaders tell you what to do. Let them propose what would be a possible strategy that can bring lasting peace between conflicting tribes. So culture-sensitive peace-building initiatives and approaches are very crucial in conflict areas like myself. I mean, the places that I come from. So peace begins when the fight stops. That's very true. When the fight stops, there is nothing else that we wait, but we wait for peace to come. But it only survives if it is nurtured slowly. Like the blog that Miranda and Sinclair published, a garden that has to be nurtured, has to be looked after, has to be watered, it gives a good produce. A peace process that is closely scrutinized, monitored, sustained, will only last in places where the cultural aspect is also something that brings up or trigger the anger. So stability, sustainability, and continuous engagement in the activities and programs put forward is very crucial. I think that's all. Thank you.
Thanks so much, William. And now, Michael, last but not least.
No worries, okay. So I sort of jump at this opportunity to talk about gun buyback schemes because there's a couple of weeks ago a new national gun buyback scheme was launched in Enga province, which sort of following on from William's talk can be seen as another government quick fix in many ways. These schemes have been part of an ongoing conversation I've been having with colleagues in Hela province for the last 10 years or so. But it is now over 20 years since the ALPA's report on gun running in Papua New Guinea came to the unambiguous conclusion that guns in the PNG highlands should be traded for development but never cash. The reasoning behind this conclusion was that, and a quote from the report, evidence suggests that amnesties rarely succeed in removing targeted weapons from circulation. Buybacks yield better results in public relations and community building than in preventing future gun injury. Gun amnesty and buyback initiatives are a triumph of wishful thinking over all the available evidence, and the program that is best known to be ineffective in reducing firearm violence. ALP has also made the observation that gun buybacks are proposed with enthusiasm by owners of illegal small arms throughout the Southern Highlands, always with full market value in mind or more. ALP has based his report on data that had been collected up to 2005. And since that time, several further gun buyback schemes have been proposed or put into action by the PNG government. In June 2008, the then Police Minister, Sandy Ramby, proposed implementing a national gun buyback scheme as one of the 161 recommendations made in the 2005 Guns Committee report. In January 2017, Papua New Guinea's Assistant Police Commissioner Raphael Haufalo announced an ambitious gun and assault weapons buyback scheme that was linked to tensions between the government and landowners in Hela province over unpaid PNG LNG royalties. And then on the 6th of March this year, a well-funded and highly publicised national gun amnesty and buyback scheme was launched in Enga province. It's hard to know what to say about this scheme that the ALPA's report did not already say back in 2005. But it is clear that nobody in any position to decide policy in PNG has ever taken any notice of the large body of criticism of these schemes. Last month, Jack Asser published a nuanced analysis in Dev Policy that considered evidence from Australia and New Zealand where buyback schemes have been successful, and the US where they have not. Perhaps they could be made to work in PNG if the right lessons could be learned and the schemes designed for the PNG context, and if the right reforms are simultaneously put in place. Asser makes the salient point that paying for guns might only incentivise the entry of more into the supply chain. Now, I want to expand on that point because I think it needs to be made central to our understanding of the problem. We need to understand gun buyback schemes through an economic lens, and we also need to understand these schemes through the eyes of the people, the gunmen selling the guns. This is a photo I took in Tari in 2004. This is a policeman in Tari Market, a guy from the Southern Highlands. First to the gunmen. So about 10 years ago, I lived in an area in the southern part of Hela province where intergroup armed conflict would periodically break out. On one occasion, the place where I was living ended up in the middle of a battlefield, and I had the opportunity to meet and interview people from both sides of the conflict. This was a land dispute that was characteristically complex, and I won't go into the details, but one interesting aspect of this dispute was the unevenness of the opposing sides. One side, the top left, who were eager to sort of line up and pose for me, was heavily armed with assault rifles, pump-action shotguns, hunting rifles, and even some army helmets for protection. The other side was armed only with homemade shotguns. These guys were not only better armed, but they were much better educated and had access to capital. Speaking with me in perfect English, some had come from Port Moresby to defend their land. The other side was poor and living remotely with poor access to education services and very little access to funds. Their homemade shotguns were only good at short range, and one of their members had been killed, shot dead in the bush near my house, and left for 3 days before it was safe to collect him. I attended the compensation ceremony for his death. These guys are lined up like that because they're on the way to the compensation ceremony. That's where the side that is in horticulture the side that has suffered a death has to pay compensation to the kin of the deceased who has died in battle supporting you. If you are able to avenge the death of your supporter in the fight, then that reduces the amount of compensation you need to pay. At the ceremony, the father of the boy who had been killed made a plea for peace. That's him in the yellow vest. For compensation to be paid and for the fight to be resolved. It was the second son that he had lost this way. His side was clearly outgunned, and there was no point in further deaths in a war that they were bound to lose. Here we can clearly see the drivers of an arms race. Privileged, well-connected clans are much better armed and are able to dominate in disputes. They are also politically connected and able to act as assets to politicians who support them. Money, power and political connections are all part of a logic of illicit gun possession that only strengthens over time, and with each political cycle. Things get really bad when two politicians go into conflict with each other. And just to illustrate the reality of this is a polling booth in Hela province during the 2002 elections. And there's the police uniform on the right-hand side, and this is ballot box stuffing. The gun buyback scheme currently underway in Enga is being enthusiastically embraced by people who are currently embroiled in the conflict. Why would they want to surrender their guns for cash? These guys, this is a picture from the scheme currently underway. These guys are not sitting there thinking, with all this money, I can finally send my kids to school. From an economic perspective, capital is not a linear endgame. Money is not simply handed over for a gun that is then taken out of circulation. Money and guns are interchangeable, and the injection of one form of capital into this system can only make the system larger. Demand for guns in the highlands outweighs supply, and increasing the supply of capital can only help to fulfil this demand. From various social media commentary, we can sort of estimate how much money these guys are being paid for their guns. And you can kind of, what I could figure out, it was probably around 30,000 kina per gun, which should be enough to surrender one gun and buy two more. This is just a kind of a rough, but the principle applies. So the ALPA's, on the top left, ALPA's calculated, he published sort of going rates, black market firearm prices back in 2005. This is data from 2019 from the Middle East, which obviously doesn't translate to Papua New Guinea, but these guns, to my mind, are surprisingly cheap. How did the PNG government decide on the going rate for these guns? How is that sum being calculated, and how was it negotiated? Furthermore, for all the publicity around the gun handover itself, nothing is ever revealed as to the fate of these guns. What are the incentives for police to take these guns and cut them up with an angle grinder? What are the incentives for these guns to re-enter circulation in the market? And if you do the maths, how many illegal guns are there in circulation? Nobody knows. Commonly, people would say it's in the tens of thousands. Singarok recently claimed the number is about 100,000. Even if we assume 10,000, then 30,000 kina per gun is 300 million kina. And this is just not a problem with a cash solution. The lesson to be learned from PNG's gun amnesty buyback schemes has not changed since the ALPA's report in 2005, which has said don't do it. Why is this lesson never learned? Gun buyback schemes don't fail in PNG for the same reasons that they have succeeded in, won't succeed, don't fail in PNG for the same reasons they've failed in the US, and they won't succeed for the same reasons they have succeeded in Australia. Deeper, more detailed understanding is required of the social, cultural and political context behind the demand for guns in PNG. The solution lies in the reduction of this demand. Injections of cash can only fuel this demand. Until everyone is honest about the drivers of this demand, including the political economy of violence that supercharges the problem, and the problem's mostly in resource-rich provinces, the development failure of these resource-rich provinces, payment of royalties to claimants over land based on accident of birth, the catastrophic impact of intergenerational trauma that is the result of decades of living among unimaginable violence and fear. And that's a big, major problem, major driver in PNG is the, after the, a few decades of this, we're in a situation where it's a very deeply traumatised population that's driving a lot of this problem. This was a video put up on Facebook a couple of years ago from Enga, and I had it translated. William can correct me on this, but the kid is saying he picked up this gun from his dead brother, and he's calling out the names of his clans, his enemy clans in the customary way, and saying to his enemies, "You had better educate your children well, because I'll take this gun and blow out your brains." Oh, we got no sound. In February, the Police and Internal Security Minister was quoted as saying that illegal firearms are PNG's number one enemy. Yes, and desperate inequality is PNG's number one enemy. Intergenerational trauma is PNG's number one enemy. Corruption is PNG's number one enemy. There is no solution that is specific to PNG's illegal firearm problem. The problem is a symptom of demand, and that demand has its own logic. In all my interviews with gunmen in PNG, almost all of them complained to my face that guns are a major problem for PNG and that nobody should be owning them. People complain that the government should provide services so that they should not have to own guns. Again, this is mirrored in the ALPA's report of 20 years ago, when it quoted gunmen in the Southern Highlands village of Nipa as saying, "Tell USAID and AusAid and UNDP we'd burn all our guns in return for development in Nipa." What they meant is that evenly dispersed development that provides opportunities and alternative lifestyle choices for both themselves and their enemies would mean that they would no longer need to own guns. The circular economy is also an investment economy. These kids are tomorrow's warlords. Cash for guns is an investment in this economy, and the return is both more guns and more gunmen. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Liddy. Thank you, William. I mean, three sort of quite different presentations there. There's a lot of issues that they sort of cover. Just in relation to Michael's sort of final few points there. I mean, whilst guns are sort of seen as a sort of major problem for the PNG state and for the police and the issue of policing, most of the illegal guns in PNG are actually coming from the state. What little we do know is that significant proportions of the illegal weapons that are represented in these pictures originate with the Defence Force, the Police Force, and the correctional services. So it really is circular in that sense. And some of you may have seen an ABC report, I think it was about 3 weeks ago, where the PNG Defence Force commander, whilst thanking Australia for the generous gift of yet another batch of high-powered weapons for the police, simultaneously said, we don't have the capacity to secure these. We can't guarantee the security of these weapons when we receive them. So there are lots and lots of issues there. Liddy's talk about sort of bylaws is one area where sort of communities sort of beyond the state, in a way, are really trying to sort of figure out ways of addressing some of these issues at a very, very local level. William is sort of making the point about the sort of rushed nature of peacemaking and sort of contrasting that with the need for slow peace building. I'm sure there are a number of sort of international leaders that could probably benefit from some of these lessons as we speak. But basically we have about 26 minutes or so for questions, for comments. If you wish to address your comments to a particular panel member, please identify the panel member. Otherwise, we can just go around the panel when the question is made and get a response for each panel member. So anyone with a burning question? Clarinda. Do we have a roving mic?
First of all, thank you to Mas Leido Plalo sharing experience play plalo. And tap also reflecting community work play plan hard work play plan. Thank you, Drew. Just one question for Brother William. You talk about the apps. How did they come about? The WhatsApp app.
Thank you. That's a good question. It was initiated by tribesmen from those neutral tribes living outside who had not been part of the warring factions. And the frontliners are the church pastors who initiated that WhatsApp group, and then they invited everyone to be part of it so that everyone can see the conversations going back and forth. So we felt that that was very helpful, so that we can directly hear what the other party is saying and then the other party is responding. So it was the initiative of the church pastors and tribal leaders from neutral tribes. Thank you.
Secondly to that, before the WhatsApp, there was obviously difference there, but without the middlemen being present, it was also a matter of security as well, right? But I want to ask about the time frame. Was it faster doing it with the WhatsApp than one time talk story law or people tasol, man tasol?
Yeah, I think it was also a breach of customary way of conversation in a tribal fight, because it only allows the men to talk. But this time, with the WhatsApp group, everyone was there. And even people who are not good orators can write good English in the WhatsApp. So it's sort of like challenging, and at the same time it was relieving, so that we can directly hear them. It was challenging in a sense that it also provoked, and people also sent provocative messages without using the original names. And in a sense, it was good, but it was also challenging to have that happen. And the good thing also was that it also include those leaders in the province. They were also in the group, so they can also hear. And people are satisfied that their voice is being heard by those at the lawmaking front, and then also the community leaders, and also the warring tribal men in the community.
So when you said it was everybody, did you have women and girls participating in the talk story? Or was it just strictly men?
There were only a few women who have good orators, and who have, most of them are pastors, as I could, and pastors they were also regarded as pastors.
Okay.
So when the husband is a pastor, the wife is also regarded as a pastor. So we have a lot of new denominations in Enga as well. So that's why to go against a pastor is, sometimes we feel uneasy. So we just allowed it, and then they kept talking, and sometimes they swear at us too.
So in that case, just the normal community women and girls, they weren't able to talk.
They were
They
not.
can read, but they cannot write and say what they want in the app.
Yeah, most of them will be criticized, so they can listen, but they won't talk. And they knew that that's for the elders and the leaders to talk and come to other options to resolve the issue.
Thank you.
Thank you. Leah Kent from Victoria University. Thank you for a really fascinating panel. I really enjoyed all of those presentations. Just a question again to William, but I think also for the whole panel really. I really like this concept of slow peace. I think it's a really great concept to think about, and it reminded me of Rod Nixon's concept of slow violence. So it seems like a nice kind of counter to that, and that of course is about the violence that's, you know, the structural violence that's unseen and often invisible and doesn't get noticed. And it seems to me that slow violence is also, Miranda, with that image you showed, the sort of often the unseen kind of work that's going on under the surface. But I guess one challenge with thinking about this, and it's a really a practical challenge really, is how do you get support and funding for slow peace initiatives, because by their very nature they are very long-term, very low-key. There's not like the grand signing of the peace agreement which everyone can kind of, you know, get behind and get media attention for. So what are some of the strategies or the ways that you think, you know, these kinds of really long-term, often very localised initiatives, how can they get more attention and more support? Yeah, sorry, that's a big question, but I think any of you can comment.
That is a huge challenge. It's something that myself and my colleagues in Hela Province talk about a lot, because the project-driven nature of UN peace-building initiatives or whatever, the pressure from funding bodies to, you know, have something, you know, done and get us this report by this day, you know, and give us these results from, and it just doesn't, the reality just doesn't work like that. And, you know, so you do get these kind of half-finished programs that sort of, you know, like there was, I don't know, I could give some examples, but how you're asking, yeah, how to kind of rectify that problem. I mean, I've been trying to do it from the top down. You've got to change these sort of organisations from the top, you know, and get this kind of understanding at the level of the people who are, you know, DFAT, who are sending the money, or the UN or whatever. And it's like, pay attention. And so pay attention, whoever's in the room from DFAT. So.
Just one point about the slow peace building. When I talk about slow peace building, it's when we have the tribal fight, the killing and the destruction and everything is going on. It's sort of like the anger is up there somewhere. And from also it's part of the cultural belief that they cannot quickly come and have direct conversation with the other tribal enemies. And before they actually face their warring tribes, they will consult the widows who have lost their husbands. They will talk to the families who have lost their brothers. And they will have that internal mediation will take place for a while. And that community has to be in peace so that they can have peace with the others. But what we see now, it's like you guys get together and make peace. When internally they are not yet at peace, sometimes they will see it's because of this land issue between you twos, and we have lost a lot of lives. We have lost innocent people, innocent business, innocent children affected, mother. And that's why when the fight stops, this conversation starts. Consulting those widows, consulting those families who have lost their family members. And it takes a bit of time until everyone is at the same level in thinking. And that's when we extend to the other warring tribe. And that's why that was overlooked when the government just stepped in. So that's why government also have to look into those values, that custom that people uphold in the communities, so that what they started has to be sustained. If they can also uphold those values that they have. So I don't know, there's no slow fighting or slow conflict. When conflict comes, there's no way to stop. It just start and take off like a wildfire. Thank you.
I think adding on to that, what your question on using the herbs, I think in any mediation, they normally have a team from the other tribe and the other team. They try to make it so that there must be very neutral people involved in this mediation. And sometimes when they go and talk to the other, they come back, they also try to work out whether they'll tell them completely what they hear from them or not. They might say something that can trigger them. So they will remove, put in. This is what they do. The mediators, the community mediators do. They mainly consist of leaders, and sometimes the police are inside. But if they're talking directly, I think that is like taking off the middle people and their interest in there. I think that is, a good way. But the thing is, I think the women are not involved, because tribal fighting is seen as the men's, and we have our traditional beliefs and things like that, they're fighting with men and things like that the women must not cross and things like that. There's a lot more issues around there too. Coming back to your question, when there is a peace negotiations and whatever they come to an agreement we help with drafting the terms of reference or the contract that if they're making the peace, that this tribe is asking them if they've been moved out of the community, they said, okay, now the land must be released to them. Or said, oh no, we already planted, things like that. We try to come up with an agreement where both have to sign. But only this will go forward, we need a strong leadership. A strong leader can be able to, and an honest leader can be able to drive this change.
I have a question. My name is Nora, and I am from Vanuatu. And what I hear today is something very interesting, because it really tells me how small my country is. Because as a Melanesian country, I see all of this, and I'm thinking back to the traditional systems in line with the slow peace, how we get to support the process of slow peace. I suppose because of the size of the population of my country that that works. The traditional system of what we call the chiefly system works in this kind of situation where negotiation before the war actually happens, so before it culminates to actually having this it comes to the level of using the guns and all of that. So my question is, in the process of the peace talk negotiations, because normally there'll be, like for us, fight has to happen or conflicts happen because of mainly three things: land, women, and power. So leading up to this stage, there will be negotiations, and afterwards there will be negotiations, but it is always at the chiefly level. It is always at the tribunal level where we come to that point where we try not to make it up to this, but clearly the population is way too small, so it's manageable. So one thing I would like to understand is that how powerful is the traditional system in this negotiation, because the people on the ground know how to bring that peace. Maybe at times they just don't have the necessary mechanisms in place to assist them to be able to get this to come about. So it culminates to a point where it's out of control. So I would like to see, or I would like to hear if you could tell us how the traditional respect, like the respect that's given to these traditional leaders, the tribes, how is it that it's overlooked? What are the causes behind that? because their voices should be enough, because this is in the rural communities. The government is where we talk about police and all of that. But if it is in the rural communities, then how can outside help come in to support the mechanisms that are already in the community to empower them to be able to handle the situations? I'm sorry if I'm a bit broad on that, but I'm coming from the traditional knowledge of the Melanesian Fasin. Thank you.
Can I add on to question? Thank you. So the way I'm seeing it from your PowerPoint, where you have two systems of achieving peace and forgiveness and reconciliation, there's one from the formal state up to the communities and the villages, and then you have one where the villages themselves, they take the upper hand in providing that and accepting it. So what I'm thinking is, if that's placed in the context in Vanuatu, as a Melanesian brother to Papua New Guinea, that I think the more effective achievement of settlement of peace and reconciliation and acceptance would be more the traditional way of, you know, where in one of your slides where you mentioned about exchanging, giving beaks, mats, kava, and all that, because it speaks to the soul, where you're from. It picks up the mana from your place to you. And that's how deep it will be in effect and the impact in comparison to the formal system coming up and down. Yes, and another thing that I would like to also put, I have a question, is how judicial decisions contribute to peace building for restorative justice. Like you have cases in FSM and cases in Vanuatu where you have the judicial system in criminal cases accept mitigating factor as part of, if this villager, this one causes sexual assault with this one, we go and kill them, and that's, we accept it. One kill here, one kill there, the communities exchange, and it's like a tit for tat, and then we're good, and then we take that up to the court system, and the court system says, okay, that's fine, I accept it, reduce of sentence. Like, how effective is the judiciary system playing their role as well in all of this, in this mechanism? Thank you. But then I want to say that thank you so very much, because we are learning. BNG is like 10, 20 steps ahead. We're coming after, and we're seeing and we're learning from your experiences. Thank you very much.
I think I am involved in some of this conflict mediation, but bringing somebody to justice, I haven't come across any, because they pay compensation. It's normally you talk to the deceased, like what William mentioned, that the deceased widow, the brother, the parents, you have to ask them to get a permission before you can proceed, because sometimes they are very strong, they want to take revenge, so they will not open up. They will not open up. But there was another tribe where they wanted to make peace, so that they wanted to go back, build up the harms, and then they want to pay back. So that is what happened. We made a peace, but initially they went back and they built up the harms and they went back. So traditionally, we haven't seen, maybe William can talk, in the context where I've been involved, we didn't bring anybody, the other tribe didn't bring anybody to justice. If they've been killing on the other side, they go through the traditional way of paying so many pigs and compensation money, and they have been accepting them that whatever, he lost a life, but they're paid. And there are rituals that you have to go through to sort out the orphans, the widow, and all those people who are deceased. But yeah, you got any that or any of the islands people here, you know of anybody that were killed in the war, in the tribal conflict, were they brought to justice?
I think I don't. Anybody, any crime committed during the tribal fight, it's just put aside. Like even a rape, a woman is being raped during the tribal fight. it's considered part of the tribal fight and they never talk about it. Like coming back to that cultural part of it, where we talk about these Melanesian values of justice and bringing peace. Before, I think it was very effective because the tribal leadership was very strong. The leadership aspect was able to all intact those cultural values, the norms, and that's when justice was done within the village. And now we see it's slowly breaking down that cultural leadership. When there is no cultural leadership, someone is not providing that kind of leadership in the villages, everyone is sort of like making their own decisions. There is no sense of respect. There is no sense of protecting someone. Everyone is minding their own business. And that's one of the very common problems that give ways to anybody to do anything at their own wish. The other aspect that contributes is the political aspect of it. The politicians are already seen as someone up there. And if they can use that leadership to look after the people, that would be very good enough. And that can also sort of like maintain and hold accountable who is trying to create any problem. But politicians are also complacent because they're thinking of their votes. They're thinking of trying to remain in power. That's why they don't want to see them directly involved in holding someone accountable. In Enga culture, if you arrest my brother, you are arresting my old tribesmen, and everyone is turning against you. And this kind of complicated nature doesn't allow the politicians to deliver the kind of leadership that people need. When in terms of tribal fight, in terms of marriage, land, and power. As you mentioned, you rightfully mentioned those three factors that drag the whole tribe in. Unlike other crimes like assault, stealing, it doesn't really escalate into tribal fight. But when you talk about marriage, land, and power, that automatically drag the whole tribe in. So that's why the important aspect that is missing is the leadership in the village, in the community. And I think Lily is working in that space to build up those communities, and then the community mobilize themselves to come up with laws so that they can be protected by what they are proposing or what they develop as a community, so that no individual has to be held accountable for anything. Thank you.
We have 2 minutes left. We can sort of continue for a bit longer, but yeah, maybe the last 2 questions. One over there and then Anouk.
Sorry, no, just
Maybe, well, Anouk's got the microphone.
All right, I'll try and make it short. I've had several discussions with Australian officials about why on earth are we supplying high-powered weapons to our neighbouring countries in situations when we know that police transparency is poor, that the weapons, the security even of the weapons at the police stations is poor, and that they're actually killing people, you know, in the highlands of PNG, Australian-supplied weapons. Now, there's 2 things that Australian officials commonly say to me in response to this question. One is that you need guns to fight guns, that the PNG forces need guns to fight guns. And then the second thing is, oh, if we don't give them, then China will give them. Now, I would really just love quick responses from anyone who is willing. What are the counter-arguments to these points, that the PNG forces need guns even if they can't, you know, control them and prevent them from killing citizens, that China will give the guns if Australia doesn't give the guns? Really welcome anyone to comment. Thank you.
They have. What's the response to that? You need guns to fight. Well, my argument is you need to look at the the demand for guns. And guns are, I mean, intergroup conflict, wherever you have traditions of conflict, you have traditions of peace building or peacemaking. And that is a big gap in the approach, because the approach is, oh, there's conflict, so people, we need to come in and give them peace building. They've already got peace building, but there is a lot of support that can be given. And it's very often it's not much, you know, it's just sort of a seed, or you know, there are always particular people who emerge as, you know, incredibly effective local leaders and peace builders. Oh, I lost my train of thought. And it's very creative. Like William was talking about the WhatsApp initiative. You know, and a peacebuilding NGO would never come up with an idea like that. And the way these sort of peacemaking initiatives operate is it's very creative, all the time changing and adapting, trying new things. And things can be led and directed from the ground up. And that's, I mean, and we could do that. You know, we could. I think the entire peace building industry is kind of upside down in that sense. I was a bit associated. I was trying to help the USAID PNG Peace Project when it was still in existence. And all they had to do was go into Hela Province and stick their logo on things that were already happening and just figure out who was who needed support, what support they needed. And they could have done so much, and they were too scared to even put a foot in the place, you know. And spending all our aid money on logistics people in an office in Port Moresby, or, you know, media people. It was just, you know, and so much could be done. And we could do so much to reduce the, you know, help people themselves reduce these problems, and especially in the area of trauma counselling, dealing with the trauma. I can't emphasise that enough.
Can I just make a couple of points? I mean, I think it's really important to understand that where these conflicts are occurring, there is very limited presence of state. So when policing occurs, it's police coming in from outside, and they go in as a kind of fire brigade, very heavily armed. They're often completely outgunned, and they observe the fight from the hilltops. They can't engage because otherwise they would, you know, end up being killed or being shot at. And really what is also important to recognise is that many people now keep guns for defensive purposes. Guns are seen as a viable form of security, and the reality is often they are. So you have this sort of arms race going on. These people over there have a gun, so we need to have a gun to protect ourselves. And how you break that cycle, I don't think there's any quick solution, but a long-term solution gets back to, you know, slow peace building. And a significant aspect of slow peace building is bring the state back in. The state has to be present. There has to be a government presence. There has to be a police presence. There has to be schools. There has to be... A lot of this is happening where the state has essentially evacuated. And then you have the addition of these high-powered militarized weapons that are pervasive throughout the community, very different to Vanuatu. Where do you start? But one way to start is that the state has to return to these places, provide infrastructure, provide services. That is a critical aspect of slow peace building. And also, it's important to see that we haven't really talked about this, but this new livelihood of hired gunmen is a response to the absence of any other economic opportunities in these areas, a rapidly growing, very youthful population. Being a hireman for many young men today is a livelihood choice that they make. So there are all sorts of different aspects to what is going on. There are no quick or easy sort of fixes.
Can I just add to that, to answer that question as well? And look, I would say that, you know, maybe the police don't have enough guns because they're leaking out. So if Australia really thinks that, you know, the police should have more guns, then help plug the leaks in both, you know, guns, but also ammunition. Like, that's going out all of the time. So, you know, do that. And then, you know, if the Chinese give guns as well, at least we know that they're contained.
Just one experience on that. There was a raid in one of the villages by a special force. The force arrived in one of the houses in a very remote place. And that special force, they call it Kumul 23, engaged by the government of PNG. And they surrounded the house and they collected the guns. And the person was trying to retaliate, and then he was shot dead. The three inside were all dead. And then the tribesmen retaliated, but also exchanged fire, and then almost 7 were killed. So I think it's a national concern that guns will come for gun to gun, but I see that there's already thousands of gun presence everywhere. The only thing I feel that to deter this kind of practice is use this kind of force. The government should engage them, use the intelligence within the villages, surround them, collect them. And then that will somehow deter those people smuggling gun in. They know that they are risking their own brother to give them a gun, because gun smuggling is done by police, government officials, MPs, everyone. There's no one innocent. So only way to deter is to use certain special forces, use intelligence within the villages, surround them, collect them, lock them up. It may help. I mean, just my thinking.
Do we, maybe yours is the last, it's definitely the last question, and then we'll...
Thank you very much. And actually, it follows up from something Sinclair said. My name is Emeritus. I'm from University of St Andrews in Scotland. And for the past 15 years, I've been conducting research at the Frida River project in the CPIG. It's site of a big undeveloped gold and copper project. It is always in the state of kind of becoming. And Frida River is a place that state has not quite evacuated. It has never made it there. The question is for Lily, but I wonder, you know, others, please feel free to jump in as well. There is a friction there, and the absent presence of the state is something I work with quite a lot. And during one of my stays in the communities, there was a lot of law and order issues, and the company was getting quite upset because it was putting strain on their security personnel. So they decided to fly in from WEWAC police to do education and talk about the role of police and how to get their support. The company was hoping that police would take over. The policeman stood and said, look, guys, we're too far away. Don't call us. Like, even if we come and we arrest somebody, thinking you will have to go and visit them. It's going to cost you money. You will have to feed them in prison. It's going to cost you money. So actually, it's so inconvenient for you. You better sort it out using your own, passing blood place. And I wondered, to an extent, you painted this great and I think, very valid argument about potential of community and community action there and opportunities. But also with the story of the violent nephew, I think you articulated where the limits of it are, you know, when it comes to, okay, drop him off at the police station, for the state then to take over in those most serious cases, but that doesn't happen, right? That next step, and the person got released. So I was wondering where you see the limitations of the community work in this space, and what would it take to overcome some of those limitations, particularly when it comes to state involvement or the lack thereof. Thank you.
Thank you. The community, I think we heard from the previous panel that the community, our community is complex too. I come from a community, I thought I knew my community, but I didn't. When we went through the process of trying to endorse the law, after tribe they didn't come in, so we have to re-strategize it to bring them in, to be able to agree to the law that themselves made, but they didn't want to sign, you see. So there is no one solution, or what is done in the other community you cannot use in the other community. So I think through the process of regular convening, looking, reflecting on what they've been doing, we have been trying to see what we can integrate them into, like the marijuana growers. We try to see if we can introduce them to livelihood, to find a market for them to grow. So there is no one easy solution. There are different approaches you can take, and sometimes we talk to the wives too, but who's also growing marijuana and is a very violent person and things like that, so that you have to work through with them. You have to work through with them, and as I mentioned, that they whole collectively see the importance of maintaining peace and seeing that the women are peace, that peace in the community, then there is, they can do so many things, you know. So to answer your question, there is no one solution to it, but there are a lot of challenges too. When you apprehend somebody, then the other tribe come in and, you know, they support too. They're also families and friends within the community. So it's a lot of challenges involved in trying to work, but I feel that we all need to work together. If the development partners are coming, the leaders in the community, the ward councillors, the police, and the family have to see that all this attitude, behavior, and whatever they're doing is not for the good, and it's not healthy for the family and for the community. So that it has to stop somewhere, and they have to make sure that it stops somewhere. But it is really challenging to really just look at not one way you can it can work. There's so many things that different community coming up with different, you know. They're looking at what they can do to be able to support each other. And I feel that they want to change too. The community see that they want to change too, because of the lot of changes happening in the world and in our community, of the rise of goods or prices and all this. So we tell them that the only way is like we have to stop paying compensation. In one of the community in the Bay River, when we were making consultation, the woman said that it's the compensation. There's a lot of pigs and money there, because the perpetrator is not doing anything. So to the women, they felt that the compensation was another big thing, because it has been taking the money and pig away from them. You see, it's so they came up with this, you see. So that means that we have to look at how we can work with this community to see that the person who breaks the law, we cannot pay compensation, let him wander around here. Compensation, pig and money comes from a hard work earned by another person. So you can see that it's a lot more talking, consultation, helping. We are doing a lot more changes happening within other community, coming to the other community and seeing what they are doing, what approaches they are taking, so that they'll try to see how best they can work together. Thank you.
Okay, I think, a really interesting, really important conversation, and hopefully it will continue over the next few days in other forms. But I want to close this particular session by giving an enormous thanks to a fabulous panel. So thank you very much, Lily, William, and Michael. and Clorinda.
Right. Thank you very much. I think it has been a very rich engagement of us listening and also you presenting. Thank you to the panelists and to the two converse. And again, on that note, let us all keep weaving our threads and our thoughts as we go away. Sorry, I'm a peace builder, so I'm very energetic and, just to take what PNG has been doing and most probably, I just want to leave a question to the audience just before we leave. What is it going to be like in the future for the Pacific region? As we think about the changes are good, and they're also bad. How are we going to take this on board? Where is it going to sit for you and me? Is it going to be owned by us, by our children? How are we going to translate it to our kids for a generation? All tubuna blame you, all grannies blame you. Where does it end and where does it stop? Our talano has to start somewhere, and maybe start with us today. On that note, I think tomorrow we have a hand-weaving talam noa that's going to be set up somewhere out there where we're having lunch in one of the rooms. Please visit it, and you'll see the instructions. It's very easy. We need you to weave in your thoughts, your aspirations, suggestions from all the seminars, and then it could be taken away as a talking point. Thank you very much, Liana Hola, and we'll see you tomorrow.